What if somebody's breakthrough is waiting for your persistence? Today, we're talking about how to be ready to share your story with confidence and boldness, because as Pastor Stephen said on Sunday, found people find lost people.
Welcome to the Midweek Motivation Podcast, where we bring practical help for your faith and life. Here's today's episode.
Hey guys, welcome to today's Midweek Motivation. My name is Jess. I'm so glad that you're here. We're going to jump into this conversation of how to share our stories. On Sunday, we talked about this idea of sharing stories and about chasing after the one from the 99 that's chasing after the one that's gone missing. And Pastor Stephen gave us a challenge, and that is to share our stories with people. And so I'd love for you to think with me the last time that you heard an amazing story. I love hearing people's stories. It's one of my favorite things. As a matter of fact, when I'm on social media platforms and Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, whatever, I follow people who share great stories. And there's something about hearing a story that is inspiring, something that I can connect to or even live up to or live into when I hear a story. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, because the fact is your story matters and my story matters. And it's the thing that can inspire somebody and pull them into a deeper or maybe even meeting Jesus for the first time. So we're going to talk about that. 1 Peter 3:15 tells us that we should always be prepared to give an answer. And so we're going to talk about how it is that we can prepare to share our story with people and let them know why it is that we follow Jesus, why it is that that we have decided that he's worth following. So 1 Peter 3:15 says that we should always be prepared to give an answer. And what he's talking about is always be ready to give an answer for anybody that has a question of why it is that we follow Jesus. And so that's not always an easy conversation to get into. It's not always an easy story to share. A lot of times it's real personal. A lot of times we feel like we don't actually have a really impactful story to share. But I'd like to challenge you that the truth is you do always have one. So how do we get ready, and how do we prepare to share our story? And we share our story by understanding that preparation is not perfection. So that gives us an opportunity to take a deep breath and relax a little bit, right? To know that we don't have to be perfect at this, but that we can actually prepare. And so a couple of things that I've worked through personally to get familiar with and really be prepared to share my story is that I have done some real reflection. Because here's the thing, when we first meet Jesus, I think that the story is fresh and we're energized by what it is that's happening in our life in that transformation with Jesus. But sometimes after a while, we kind of, maybe that awe starts to die down a little bit, and we're it's just not front of mind for us sometimes. So the first thing that I would recommend is to do some reflection. I did this when I first jumped into HCLI. If you're not familiar with HCLI, it's High Capacity Leader Intensive. We talk about it at Westside all the time. And it's really just a way for us to equip people in leadership and ministry. But man, this first project that we dive into of really defining it and getting in and making clear our story is such a beneficial thing. I think the Bible tells us just from 1 Peter 3:15 that we should all be ready and we should all spend some time doing this. So this is how I personally went through the process of getting familiar with my story. And I found Jesus when I was 6, but I walked away from him when I was about 13 and didn't come back until I was 21. So I had a couple of different opportunities to really lean into sharing my story of finding Jesus. And what I needed to do was to go through and really kind of get clarity on what that full story was for myself. And so here are some questions that you can ask yourself as you're doing this for you. where has God shown up in my life? So it was really important for me to look back and review where God's shown up in my life. Where did he introduce himself in my life in the first place? Who did he do that through? Where was I at in my life when that happened? So really taking some time to look back at your life story and figure out, where do you see God's fingerprints, and how was it that God was really kind of drawing you into his presence and into an introduction with Jesus. Another thing to think through is, what has he taught me through my different experiences, good or bad? God's really revealed a lot of stuff through just the world and through his creation to me personally. He's also revealed a lot of things through relationships. He's revealed a lot of things through mother-daughter relationships, through my parents, my relationship with my parents. He's also revealed a lot to me through my relationship with my kids and my friends and family. He's taught me a lot through job losses, through new opportunities. So think about that for yourself. What has he taught you through your life experiences, whether they're good or bad? That's a really great thing to kind of identify for yourself and make note of. Another question to ask yourself, where has his word come alive for you? Maybe that's through answered prayer. Maybe that's through conviction and confession and restoration. Maybe it's through relationships that have been restored. Maybe it's through taking you through a season of forgiveness, of learning how to forgive somebody. But God promises so many different things in the Word. He promises us things through prayer. He promises us things through obedience, things through following his word. Where have you seen those promises and those answered prayers come? And maybe it's been a healing experience for you personally, or for somebody that you are close to. There's so many different opportunities for us to really see his word come alive, his promises come alive. And so what are those things for you? Let's see, here's another one. What am I wrestling with right now? When I went through that HCLI process, that process of really discovering what and like diving into the story that I have to share about Jesus and his interaction with me, I had a lot of questions come up. And one of the things that really caused me to dive in and start to find answers to those questions for myself was the fact that I knew that I would be sharing my story with people. And to be able to share my story and have them come back with questions that they might be wrestling with, I knew that I needed to find those answers for myself. And we know that we can't have all of the answers, that a lot of our story depends on faith. But I don't think that God actually creates a space where we have blind faith. I think that he does actually answer a lot of questions in the Word of God. For me, he definitely did. Also, through other people's experiences, I can find a lot of answers or at least a point in a direction to find answers to my questions through other people's experiences. And I've learned a lot going through those processes I've learned a lot by diving into that process. I've learned how to ask questions of God point blank, and how to reveal those questions to him. I've learned how to find answers to those questions by diving into the Word. And I've learned where and how to deal with coming to a line and discovering that I'm just not going to get an answer to that question, and be okay with it because of the faith that I've built in my relationship with Jesus and my experiences with him, that has really just encouraged me to know that I can trust God because of my past experiences. So that's a great question for you to ask yourself is, what are you wrestling with right now? What do you need to surrender? What do you need to dive into deeper so that you can have a firm foundation and know that you're standing on solid ground, and that you really are prepared to answer those questions that people might have as you share your story? All right. So the next thing that I would encourage you to do is to pray. Prayer is such an amazing tool in this. I think that God asks us to pray. He asks us to be in conversation with him. And we see Jesus praying all the time as we follow him through the Gospels, as we follow him through the Bible and watch him in his story. He pulls away all the time to pray. And prayer does a couple of things for us. So it's really strategic as we are preparing ourselves to be able to share our story with people. So here's a couple of things that prayer does. It prepares your own heart and mind. What this really does is it helps us to align ourselves with God. I think that as I'm sharing my own story, it's important for me to lay myself aside and to lay any biases or anything that I might be bringing to the table and really just get to the point of Jesus and to stay focused on Jesus. And so when we are praying and we're asking him to renew our heart and our mind, it draws us real close to him and it helps us to stay focused on him. It also helps us to get any of our own stuff out of the way so that when we are connecting with somebody, we're connecting with them and we're leading them straight to Jesus. And that's what we want, right? When we're telling our story. That's what happened for us. That's how we were led to Jesus. So another thing that you can pray for is courage and boldness. You can be praying for courage and boldness. It's not for the timid heart to share your story with other people. And one of my life verses is 2 Timothy 1:7. For God's not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Because my natural state is to be timid. And I will lean into not sharing because I'm afraid to offend, or not sharing because I don't want to deal with the rejection that might come out of that experience. But that's not what Jesus calls us to. He calls us to share our story and to be bold and to run with excitement and energy and the awe that we experience when we first engage with Jesus and share that with everybody that we know, right? And so we need to be reminded of that thing. And we also need to be reminded of who God is. And that will give us courage and boldness. And we find that when we spend time with God in prayer and when we spend time with God thanking him for who he is and just with that initial awe that we've experienced when we engage with God for the first time and hopefully continue to carry throughout our walk with Jesus, right? And so prayer will do that for you. That's the first thing that Jesus teaches in his when he's teaching the apostles how to pray, is he's teaching them to approach God with awe and reverence and gratitude. And so that's really an opportunity for us to do the same thing as we pray. Pray for God's words. That's another thing that you can be praying for. We read in the Bible that the Holy Spirit is with us and will give us the words when we don't feel like we have the words to share. And so we can ask for that. And that's one of the things that we can see in answered prayer as we engage in prayer with God and as we engage with other people and we're sharing our stories. We can we get the opportunity to see God answering our prayer when we engage with other people and are filled up with the words and led to share the things that God wants us to share. And so that's an incredible opportunity for us and for the people that we're speaking to. And lastly, I would say pray for opportunities. This can be, I think that this is an important thing, to pray for opportunities. And that's because if we are asking for opportunities, number one, we are creating a space in our own mind that says, I actually want an opportunity to engage with somebody. Number two, when we are seeking for opportunities from God and we're preparing ourselves for them, he's going to open up those doors for us, for sure. And so we need to be praying for those opportunities and praying for the sensitivity to recognize them when they come. We talked earlier about the fact that our lives are busy and we're doing things like working on a regular basis. We've got soccer games and we've got, meetings that we need to attend and all of the things of life. And chances are those moments when we're going to be able to see opportunity and engage with people. And so praying for sensitivity in those moments is key for us to be able to engage with people. So make sure that you're praying for opportunities as they come. Okay, so then the next point, the next thing that you can do to be prepared is to make room for interruption, because it doesn't make sense for us to ask for opportunities if we're not ready to pause and be prepared for those interruptions and to make the most of them, which can be really hard to do. So as you're walking through your life and you're ready to, and you're looking for those opportunities, what might they look like? And how will you respond in those situations? Ask yourself, are you interruptible? Are you sensitive to the Spirit's nudge? And will you be ready to pause? We follow Jesus again, and we see that most of the time, as he's engaging with people, he's in motion. He's going somewhere. He's coming from someplace. And in that moment, he has the discipline to pause and to see that person where they are and to meet them where they are and to really engage in that interaction with them. So the question is, do you have that, what's the word I'm looking for? Do you have that space? Do you have that margin in your life to be able to pause and engage with somebody and have that conversation with them when the time comes up? All right. So the next point is to invest. The next encouragement to be prepared is to be ready to invest. We talked a couple of weeks ago about Bless, this model of how it is that we can engage with people and invest in them in order to develop relationships where we can engage and create a space where we have permission to speak into them and to share our stories. And so just a real quick recap of Bless. It starts with begin with prayer, which we talked about already. Number 2, listen. Listen to a person's story. Listen to where they're at in life and really engage by not sharing your story immediately, but understanding who they are a little bit more. Eat. Really, this is just an opportunity to hang out with somebody. So it could be over a meal. It could be coffee. It could be hanging out at Topgolf and just spending time to really get to know them a little bit more and develop a relationship. Then S, look for an opportunity to serve. As you're developing that relationship, you're going to see opportunities. You're going to see needs that you might be able to meet. And so that's a way for you to create a relationship that shares genuinely that you care about this person and that you're invested in them because of that. And then at the final S is share. So that's an opportunity right there for you to give a little bit of yourself in that you're sharing a little bit of your own story. And it's a story that you've prepared for them. And so you're able to connect with them in that way. All right. So then the 5th point is to keep it simple. When you're to this point where you're able to share your story, keep it simple. I think that for me personally, when I did the work of really understanding my story and seeing God's fingerprints through my life, it helped me to be able to, on the spot, connect with where a person is and be able to share my experience that might meet where they are and to encourage them and to inspire them in that way because of the things that I've seen God do in my own personal life. Here's the thing. There's a 3-step testimony framework that you can use that's really effective and it's really quick. and not overbearing. And it is, number one, this is where I was. Like, I get where you are because I was there and I can relate on this level. This is what my story looked like. This is how Jesus met me where I was, is point 2. And point 3, and this is where I am now. This is how that engagement with Jesus and that interaction changed things for me. And it's how I have been made new, or have had new opportunity, or, whatever the amazing outcome is, because we know that Jesus is amazing and he does crazy, amazing things in our life. So here's the thing. Your story doesn't need to be dramatic to be powerful. So maybe you're somebody who feels like you don't have a dramatic story, a dramatic moment when you found Jesus. Maybe you really have just followed Jesus and life's been pretty simple for you. If you go back and you look and see those fingerprints of Jesus throughout your life, then you're going to be able to connect with, and you're going to be able to encourage somebody with those moments. And those stories and that piece of information can be such an inspiration. It can be such a relief to hear from somebody who might be struggling with that same thing. And so your story doesn't have to be dramatic to be powerful, but to be able to go back in your story and pull that example out of how God has been faithful in your life and how Jesus has made a difference, and maybe even just guided you in a situation, and you can share that with somebody else, can have a huge impact in somebody else's life and whether or not they come to find Jesus themselves. So it just needs to be real. So just make sure that you go back and you look through your story and you're sharing like in real time how God made a difference in your life. So I hope that this time has been encouraging to you. I hope you've got some tools in your belt now to really go in and dive in and evaluate your own story and take a look at the difference God's made in your life so that you can encourage somebody else. My challenge to you would be to spend some time and write down a couple of moments when you really saw God move in your life, what it looked like for you to be met in that moment by Jesus, and how it is that he transformed that situation for you. And, just write down a 3-minute conversation about what that actually looked like, so that you could share that with somebody else. And then share it with somebody. Share it with a trusted friend. Share it with somebody who can give you some feedback on that, and with somebody that you can encourage. And good luck. I think it's going to be awesome. And I'm telling you right now, we're ready for it. The church is ready. People are anxious and they're asking questions and they're curious and they want to know what it is that you have to share. Your story matters. And so get ready to share it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Midweek Motivation. To make sure you don't miss any content in the future, please subscribe, share, and if you enjoyed this, give us a like. And consider popping by a Westside service some weekend. You can find out more at westsidecommunitychurch.com.